The next topic, and this is often a thing that we spend a lot of time working with our customers on, because it's a big part of any embedding project, is how to secure your users' data. And there's a number of best practices, methodologies, and tools that Tableau make available for this. So I'm just going to have a quick run through of what those are now. Now, the first and most common of these security mechanisms is something which is called row-level security. Now, row-level security is a common approach which is built into a lot of business intelligence tools. And in the case of Tableau, this is implemented using a feature called the user filters. So in this example, I'm envisaging a fictional business that provides analytics to their customers. And in this case, they have 3 distinct customers. These are actually cartoons from some of my colleagues, and they represent three different businesses. So we have Clark Limited, Slater Limited, and Wallace Corp. Now, these 3 customers all see the same Tableau dashboard. This makes it easy for the organization building the embedded analytics, because you only have to build the dashboard once with one set of design principles, kind of one set of development resource, but you can actually repurpose that dashboard for multiple customers. In this case, if I access this dashboard from Clark Limited, I will only see the slice of data which is relevant to Clark Limited. Similarly, if I access it as an employee from Slater LLP, I will see exactly the same dashboard, but just with the data from Slater. This is totally transparent to the users doing it. They're not aware that other customers have access to the same dashboard with different data. They don't see any menu options that would allow them to know that other people have access to the data, and there's no way that they can actually traverse this to see anybody else's data. So it's a very strong security mechanism, and it's baked right into Tableau, so it's very easy to implement. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to cut across to Tableau for a second, and I'm going to show you a very basic example of how that's done. So what we see here is a basic dashboard. Now this dashboard isn't currently yet published up to Tableau server or to Tableau online. That being said, I actually am already connected to a Tableau server test instance that we have, and this allows me to test how the row-level security is going to work. So what I see here is the dashboard itself, and what I get at the bottom of Tableau once I'm signed into the server or online is an option that I can use to actually impersonate different users to verify that the row-level security works in the way that I intend it to. So we've got 2 test users on this instance. We've got Jane Smith and John Doe. So if I click on one of these 2 test users, the dashboard adapts to show me the security or the data that user has access to. And this will be exactly the same experience as if the user was to access this visualization on Tableau server or Tableau online. They would see this view immediately, and they wouldn't be aware that anybody else had access to any other data. So if I look at Jane Smith, I can see that I have access to the south and the central regions of the US. And then if I access the report as John Doe, I can see that I have access to only the west and to the east regions. This might be, perhaps it could be an external customer that operates a franchise that operates in different parts of the country, or it could perhaps also be internal users that have regional sales managers, and those regional managers need to see a different slice of those data. It's also possible to have users that have a broader access. So in this case, the administrative account that I'm logged into is configured to have access to the whole of the country. And again, it might be the case that you have national managers or perhaps continental managers who need access to broader slices of data, and that's possible to implement using these mechanisms in Tableau. So if I just quickly dive into this, I can show you how it's implemented. And it's implemented using something that we call an entitlements table. Now, an entitlements table is just a very basic mapping of the attribute that you're wanting to secure in the data. In this case, it's actually a geographical region. But it could also be something like perhaps a country name, or it could be a company name or a department. however you define the security in your data is going to determine how this secureable dimension is decided. And then next to the secureable dimension, we simply have a list of usernames who have access to each of these regions. So I can see that in this case, the Tableau admin account has access to all 4 regions. Jane Smith has access to the central and east regions, and John Doe has access to the south and the west regions. Now, this is an ideal scenario where the data set that you're going to actually surface to your users actually includes the information about who has access, and this is generally a best practice. There are other mechanisms that you can use to implement this in Tableau. You can implement this using security groups, which is also an option, but actually having this kind of entitlements table is the easiest way of doing this. And once you've actually got the entitlements table, it's a very simple case of adding something called a security filter to the data. And a security filter is just effectively a mapping to say that the username of the user who is logged onto the server has to be matching the username of the user in the data that you're actually specifying. And then once we've actually created this security filter, we've simply added it as something called a data source filter within Tableau. So it actually applies to the whole data source, and it can't be overridden by any of the users when they're navigating the application. And that is essentially a very simple but quite typical implementation of row-level security. It's very easy to set up, and it works seamlessly once that dashboard has been published to Tableau Online or to Tableau Server. So I'll just quickly go back to this. So that's how that's done. Another security mechanism that we might potentially want to employ would be what we call content security. Now, this is another feature in Tableau which is implemented using something called projects. If you've used Tableau Server or Tableau Online before, you're probably familiar with the concept of a project. It is essentially a folder that exists on the server that can be used as a container for different types of content, and that project can have security which only enables specific users to access the content contained within. So in this case, what we have is, again, using the 3 fictional organizations. We have the green company here, who has a project. The boundary of the project is just visualized here by this box, and they have a customized dashboard for that company that only they can see, and that customized dashboard is linking to a data source which is also specific to that company, so that no other users on the Tableau server actually have the ability to access it. It's only limited to this specific organization. Now, in the other case, what we have is 2 other organizations. Each have a project which contains a single dashboard, and again, the blue company here only has access to the blue project containing this dashboard, and the red company only has access to the red project and the red dashboard here. This might be if you want something, perhaps some kind of confidential logo or confidential data that only exists in one of these dashboards, and you don't want other organizations to be able to access the same data. That being said, when you're actually working with this kind of content security, it is possible for some users to share some specific content. So in this case, both the blue and the red company actually share the same data set, but that data set itself has row-level security applied to it. That can be quite beneficial because you don't necessarily need to have separate data pipelines and separate storage mechanisms for each data set. If you have a single database that contains all of your customers' data, then it's still possible to give them customized reports that only they have access to, but for them all to draw on the same source of data. And this is using projects for content security is quite common in smaller use cases, but it's not always appropriate. So what Tableau also has is a final mechanism for handling data security, and this is a functionality called sites. which supports multi-tenancy. So what we have here is 3 sites for 3 distinct companies that all exist on the same Tableau server. But each of these sites is totally independent. Each site has separate users, separate data sources, and separate dashboards. It's actually impossible for any content to cross a site. So even if I had a data source on the green site that I thought would be useful to organizations on the blue site, there is no way that I could give them access across those 2 sites. It's designed for use cases where there's strong regulatory requirements or legal requirements to make sure that data is really siloed and doesn't have any possibility to be exposed between organizations. What the site functionality enables in particular, which is extremely useful, is the ability to enable sharing between those particular users. So in this case, say I have a colleague here, Joe. If he accesses a particular dashboard and he's interested in making a comment about that dashboard that he wants to send to a colleague, so his colleague yells here in this case, then he has the ability to use the social sharing features within Tableau to actually share that comment, perhaps set up a subscription so that Yells receives that email on a daily basis, or any of the other kind of sharing functionalities that Tableau supports. In the previous use case, we wouldn't be able to enable these sharing functionalities. The reason why that is the case is that we don't know which users within the organization belong to, or which users on the site belong to the same organization. So we wouldn't want a staff member from the blue company, for example, having access to contact details for the staff member for the red company. So if you do want to enable this kind of cross sharing functionality, then you would need to use sites. So just to recap, the 3 kind of mechanisms we have for securing users' data is we have low-level security. So low-level security is where users have access to common dashboards and data sources, but they see a different slice of that data. The content security is where you've got some content which is perhaps unique to a user, or for security reasons it has to be restricted to a particular group of users. And finally, you have multi-tenancy, where you have totally independent sites on the same server, and there's no way of sharing content or any user communication across those sites.